Here we are with another International Volleyball Academy. This time we will take a look at the float serve. It overwhelmingly dominates women's volleyball, but occasionally appears in men's volleyball. However, let's start with a brief summary of what we learned about the jump serve.
We mentioned that we mainly guide the boys to transition directly from the top spinning serve, which they learned before the age of 12, to the jump serve. For both boys and girls, practicing the jump serve develops essential ball control skills. It also develops another important skill, attacking after one's own toss. This will be excellently utilized during training for blocking and digging. Furthermore, we noted that the approach for both the jump and hybrid serves must be quick and dynamic. The player should land deeply into the court after striking the ball, and we clarified why the strike should be executed above the right shoulder. We also discussed the tactical variations of the jump serve, both in terms of the location from which it is served and the trajectory of the ball's flight. We concluded that the coordination of jump, timing, arms, wrist is the fundamental aspect we are interested in at the age of 13. We established that the primary goal is to gain safe control over the ball, so we added short serves and serves with side spin to the hard spiked serve. The so-called hybrid serve has two variations. The first is when the player tosses the ball with one hand for a jump serve but hits a float serve instead. In the second variation, the player tosses with both hands, and the initial execution phase is identical to the float serve. However, it then surprises with a hard strike similar to a jump serve. And this brings us to today's topic, the float serve.
First, just like with the jump serve, we will look at the preparation before the actual serve. As we said, it is a psychologically demanding situation where players step out of the game flow and suddenly find themselves alone. To overcome the stress, they use various rituals, such as bouncing the ball on the ground or spinning it in their hands. The very arrival at the starting point for the serve should be dedicated to concentrating on the action. Now let's move on to the technique of the float serve. It can be executed in various ways, but what all well-executed float serves have in common is how the ball is struck and the trajectory of its flight. Unlike the jump or hybrid serve, the float serve can be hit in front of the player, as seen in the execution by Brazilian player Flávio. The wrist is firm during the strike to prevent the ball from spinning. The flight path is straight and the ball rotates minimally or not at all. The toss can be done in different ways, with the first method being a toss with the non-dominant hand during the two-step approach. And again, we see that the striking point is in front of the body. The second method is a toss with both hands. The approach differs in dynamics. While in these shots the approach is short, in the following ones, especially in the serves by Slovenian Kozamernik and Japanese Yamauchi, the approach is very dynamic. However, the float serve is primarily a part of women's volleyball.
There are other types of float serves too. For example, serves from a greater distance behind the court, where the ball loses speed after a long flight path and shows an irregular trajectory. Finally, there is the serve after an approach and jump from one foot. Although we hinted in previous episodes that we prefer the jump serve for boys and its training for girls, at least for the sake of ball control, we must also practice the float serve, primarily of course the toss, but also a specific type of strike with a firm wrist.
We have reached the end of the three-part mini-series on serving, and we must always keep in mind that serving is the first attack. We thoroughly discussed the jump and hybrid options, and finally the float serve. Our analysis indicates that we still prefer the jump serve, so before summarizing today's episode, let's take a look at how the best players in the world serve.
First, the diagonal players, who are usually the main attackers of the team. For example, German Grozer, Italian Romanò, or American Anderson. Then there are the outside hitters, who play two roles. They must both receive the opponent's serve and attack hard. We will cover them in future episodes. For example, Italian Lavia, Brazilian Leal, Italian Michieletto, Slovenian Čebulj, or American DeFalco. Next, we have the middle blockers, who were previously utilized for initiating play rather than attacking with their serve. This has changed in recent years. Middle blockers must also now attack with their serves. For instance, American Averill, Italian Galassi, American Holt, Brazilian Saatkamp, Slovenian Pajenk, or Polish Kozamernik. However, setters must also attack with their serves, such as Italian Giannelli, American Christensen, or Japanese Sekita, whose strategic task is to create the game, not to finish it with an attack.
But it's no use, the serve is the first attack, and this applies to all players. And now, a brief recap of today's episode.
Today our topic was the float serve, and we started with the preparatory rituals before execution. We stated that with the float serve, unlike the jump serve, the strike is often executed in front of the player with a firm wrist. Furthermore, the flight path is straight, and the flying ball rotates minimally or not at all. The player tosses either with one hand or both hands during the two-step approach. We demonstrated additional variations of the float serve, such as from a greater distance behind the court or a variant with a jump from 1 foot after the approach. We also showed how to practice the float serve with children. In the conclusion, we showcased serves executed by the greatest stars in the world.
And what awaits us next? There must be a reaction from the opponent to the attack in the form of a serve. That is the reception of the serve. We will discuss the starting position for receiving the float serve, and will show how to receive it and how to utilize the split step, where the player lifts their feet off the ground, gaining potential energy for accelerating the subsequent movement. We will also dampen the serve in various ways, such as moving backward. We will demonstrate how important targeting the ball is through proper arm positioning, and why players should keep their arms connected even after contacting the ball. We will then explore the technique of overhand reception, which is known from digging and is almost indistinguishable from reception. Is there anything you're curious about that wasn't mentioned in this episode? Let us know in the comments and we'll be happy to discuss. Do you have a topic suggestion for one of the upcoming episodes? Let us know. For now, take care and see you next time.